I've always wanted to film here, but there's this dog right over there that is constantly yapping. So I'm just really hoping I get through this review without him starting to bark. I guess I had a bit of Cherryh fever since I read Merchanter's Luck, and also because Sci-Fi Finds did a video on Cuckoo's Egg. So I just went on Goodreads, I looked around a little bit, and decided on this one. The Pride of Chanur is in the Alliance Union universe, written by Cherryh. It is a collection of about 27 novels, some short stories, and a terrible music album. Just kidding, I actually really like the idea of making like an in-universe or out-of-universe for the universe music album, but the style is just totally not for me, but I'll link it in the description if you want to check it out. But anyway, to clarify, there's not really a suggested order to reading the Alliance Union universe. There are series that are sequences of books, but you can honestly read in a variety of orders. It's also the first book in the Chanur series, which is a group of 5 books, and it takes place in the Compact, which is this trade organization that covers a variety of worlds within the Alliance Union universe. When I read Merchanter's Luck, I remember being like, I wonder if there are any aliens in the Alliance Union universe. And oh boy, did I learn that there certainly are. The Compact is an area of space far from humanity, and this region is teeming with species. Each one feels like it's got their own culture, their own look, and their own feel, and it's very diverse. But the main species in this book are the Hani, which are like this matriarchal cat-like species. So Sci-Fi Finds would extra like this book, but they run this ship called the Pride of Chanur, which, just like in Merchanter's Luck, ships are kind of run by families in this universe, and this one is run by the Chanurs, which is captained by the main character of the book, Pianfar Chanur. So what is this book about? One day, Pianfar is just minding her own business, sitting at a port, and some random alien sneaks aboard the Pride. Some scuffle ensues, and they end up taking this being captive. The Kith, which are like the villains in this side of the universe for most of the species, they come poking around and they say, hey, this animal is merely our escaped property and we need it back. The being doesn't speak the language of any species that anyone recognizes, so it's trying to communicate with everyone, but Pianfar has to kind of try and figure out where this thing came from, why it tried to sneak aboard their ship, and etc. Things escalate really quickly, and it takes twists and turns that make the situation way more complicated and way more adventurous than initially expected. There's a lot to like in this book. Mostly, it just does everything that you want in an epic science fiction book. One of the things that I want in a space opera is I want the universe to feel very alive. And I'm going to echo something that I said in my review of the other Cherryh book that I read, which is this universe felt completely full, just teeming with life. Sometimes books are written such that you're given only exactly what you need to progress in the plot. Sometimes feels like if you were to step off the beaten path in a book, the universe would not hold up. And that could not be further from the truth in The Pride of Chanur. When I read this book, it just felt like there is so much to explore in this universe. Every station or planet we stopped at, it just felt like a world asking to be expanded upon. Each species had complexities and history that just had me wanting to learn so much more about everything. It's not a super long book, so Cherryh doesn't exactly tell you everything about everything, but plenty of pieces were given to build a world bursting with lore. There's a big difference between a book that, might prompt a long Wikipedia entry and a book that might prompt an entire fandom wiki about it. And this one definitely feels like the latter. Cherryh's world, it feels so fleshed out, and it's full of verbose creativity. If this book was a video game, you'd probably appreciate it for its side quests. But it's not just incredible world building. Cherryh sets up a cast of characters that are multidimensional. Pianfar is powerful and she's capable, but we also get to see her make some mistakes and we get to see her struggle. And some of my favorite characters were ones that only showed up in like a couple scenes. Like my favorite one was this guy named Goldtooth. And there's something that just draws you into some of these characters. And I was just thinking the whole time that I read, I'm like, I could totally read a book about this guy. I also like that the Hani are matriarchal. So this book passes the Bechdel test with flying colors. I have just one complaint about this book, and it's kind of big, and that's that this book is confusing in a variety of ways. I just spent a while praising Cherryh's world building, and I think that in a weird twist, she might have actually over-indexed into the world building a little bit. There are so many species. There's the Hani, the Stasho, the Kn, the Mehendosat, Mahe in the singular form. There's the Kif, the Taka, the Chi. And to be fair, only like 3 or 4 of these are centerpieces of the story, but they all show up a good bit, and that's a lot. There are lots of things that just seem unnecessarily confusing about some of the characters. Like, the main bad guy is Akukkakk, who's a hakkikt, Kif, and captain of the Hinukku. I mean, come on, bro. Like, what? And then there's stuff like the main character, her family, their names are Kohan, Kim, and Kara. And I mean, maybe it's nitpicky, but can she just throw us a bone and like start their names with a different letter? And about 2/3 of the way through this book, there's this precarious political situation that gets introduced seemingly out of nowhere. I was already getting a little lost, and then to have that introduced, it just felt overwhelming. Also, because the world building is so complex, some of the scenes seem like they're just taking place for the sake of world building or like interspecies drama, and they're irrelevant to like the main plot of the story, which can be kind of confusing. Sometimes I was just like, please, let's just stay focused, Cherryh. And also there were some lore dumps, which I'm not a big fan of. It's like, if you have something you want me to remember, then give me a reason to remember it, and I will. But let me play devil's advocate to myself here for just a second. I would definitely prefer this sort of overworld building to underworld building. Anything that is confusing to a fault, in my opinion, is still done to set up a more fleshed out universe. Additionally, after struggling with the species names and character names and planet names and stuff like that for a little bit, I did take a sec to just Google stuff and try to get my bearings, and that definitely did help me get my bearings. And that made the later parts in the book a lot more enjoyable to me. So I did do that, and it did help out a little bit, so I will leave a link in the description of the Wikipedia article that I thought was pretty helpful. I'm also certain that a more seasoned Alliance Union reader would go through this book a lot more smoothly than I myself did. And while I wish that it was a little bit more beginner-friendly, I can certainly appreciate how a veteran of this universe would appreciate the references and the complexity of this book. I do think that it would be better to read this book as an investment into the universe rather than just a standalone book. Or I suppose you could read it as like a peek into the universe as well to see if you want to continue with it. I love Star Wars because when I read a book and they say Twi'lek or they say Corellian or some other species, I know what those look like. I can instantly picture them. I know the species' passions and their homeworld, and if they're generally amicable or contentious to other species and which species they are. And when I hear someone say Coruscant or Tatooine, I can picture those worlds and the cities on them, and it makes for an incredibly smooth reading experience for me when I read Star Wars books. But I know that it wouldn't be the same for others. And I honestly can't say for sure about Cherryh's Alliance Union universe, since I've only read this book and Merchander's Luck, whether or not the Alliance Union universe gives that same level of satisfaction when you grow accustomed to the aliens and the planets in it. But if I had to guess, I'm sure it does, because Cherryh is clearly a very skilled author, and that really makes me want to read more. Don't get it twisted. This is a really good book. Sure, it got a little bit confusing at times, but more importantly, I appreciated the hard work that Cherryh does to build out a universe that feels lived in and that I cared about. Thanks for watching. The dogs didn't bark. Let's go.